But I get rudely awakened with this move, rook d6, and all of a sudden, I'm getting forked on the d file, which I had possession of earlier, but was tempted to try and use the g file. So I played the move queen b5, and then very shortly in his time, resign as he's getting an envelope out to seal the move. I resign. So it wasn't as if I was outplayed from the beginning. It's like a self-destruct of existing advantages, pursuing other advantages needlessly. And in that respect, it occurred to me, hang on, this film popped into my head about a similar thing. Well, this might be totally irrelevant, but if this helps sort of labour the concept, then that's fine. I'd like to tell you this strange analogy with Braveheart. So in the film Braveheart, there was a betrayal by Robert the Bruce's father. He set a trap for Braveheart, but I think the intention was for Robert the Bruce's son to become king, of Scotland, or that part of Scotland. So there were existing advantages, due basically, and Braveheart was seen as a distraction. So in this game, you could say, by analogy, a very strange analogy, I know, that the G file was kind of a distraction to the D file. If the D file and other trump cards, like the two bishops, represented existing advantages, why is there a need to try and create another advantage where it's not so clear-cut that it's exploitable? The first rude awakening, though, was that f3. If we go back and review with this idea that it wasn't clear-cut to calculate the G file, then obviously it boils down again to calculation. If the G file is not exploitable, then maybe I wouldn't have been tempted to lose possession of the D file, which I had earned from this position, and the light squared bishop, which he'd just given me on a plate. So D3 on a plate, D file potentially, on a plate here. Passive position. There's no way I should lose this. Okay, so why weren't these advantages enough? Well, I didn't think of the D file this glamorously during the game, that all of these entry points on either side. But it isn't important. The centre files are more important than, say, A file. Because if you have A file, then so what? Your rooks can only attack towards the right, but rook or queens can attack left and right along this D file. So let's think of that as the major, strategic trump card. And so where does Braveheart come in? He starts moving his queen around, decentralising his queen, which makes, locking his queen on the king side much more attractive with G5, as well as stopping F4. The queen's kind of locked in, which would give my queen a free hand to use some infiltration points. So say this did occur here, H6. Here's an example variation, knight F3. And I could either just double his pawns. For example, this idea, just aiming for a small advantage ending here. Maybe rook H4, B6, bishop C5. Just go for a nice rook and pawn ending, or king and pawn ending transposition. There's also this other weird variation, by the way. I checked out, where he'd be using the H file himself, but I'd be hijacking it later for my own kind of attack, giving up A7. This is a Ribka line, strange Ribka line, but it shows the dangers of his queen being kind of trapped on the king side. But anyway, I digress. Let's go back. So H4 is the critical moment. So this is like the Braveheart temptation. Do we want to get another advantage, or just play on existing advantages? But by the way, I'm not meaning to make any political statements about Braveheart. The cause for freedom was obviously more important than anyone's. Well, you could argue it was more important than anyone's title of becoming king. So he should have. If the film depiction was at all accurate at all for history, then one could argue that the nobles should have fully supported him, because it was something noble at stake, freedom. But I don't want to get into politics. It's just a strange little analogy that if you've got an advantage, sometimes you don't want to try and create another advantage in the risk of blowing your existing advantage. So it's kind of playing solidly with respect to preserving your existing advantages. So here, G takes H4 is theoretically less strong according to Ribka, but just from that practical point of view of not keeping the trump cards up, the existing trump cards up, it seems drastically inferior, because it's giving my pieces a lot more responsibilities for these weak pawns. This queen is bouncing around back to the centre now, and he's regrouping his pieces kind of cleverly with tempo as well, you know, on that A7. And he's fine now. The G file pressure has been neutralised. So it just, and I just make the position go even more downhill with more pawn moves, more weaknesses. And, you know, this is one of my last chances now. I can still play Queen E4 with a good position, but I blow that as well. So, but then I make things even worse. White's now, like, better, and then here I just blunder a whole piece. So anyway, I hope there's something instructive in that about sometimes, you know, playing boring on, you know, with respect to your existing advantages, not being lured away with temptation of another advantage when you can just play on your existing trump cards. Okay, comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.